Welcome back to the Chase MedSearch podcast. We've got a great guest today for the audience. LinkedIn has kind of become Facebook for business sometimes, and I watch it closely, and I love to see when friends of mine that I've known through the years are promoted, land big jobs, go to exciting new ventures. And our guest today combines all of that. I've got Jason Miles here. And in the world of medical sales, there are reps and then there are leaders that shape markets, mentor teams, and drive innovation from the front lines. Today's guest, Jason, he's one of those leaders where he's helping bring game-changing radiation protection technology to interventional labs across the country. He built this career the classic way. He grinded it out in the field, learned what works, listened to clinicians, and developed a very sharp sense of what it takes to move the needle in today's healthcare environment. Jason sold in competitive markets, navigated tough buying groups, and worked with some of the most respected teams in interventional cardiology, structural heart, endourology, urogynecology, and women's health. And along the way, he's picked up the kind of wisdom that comes from real experience: how to build trust, how to sell innovation, and how to lead a team through both wins and setbacks. So today we're just going to unpack Jason's career journey, from breaking into medical device sales to stepping into leadership. And we're going to hear what it's like to really bring a disruptive technology to the market. And if you're a rep or someone that's a leader thinking about your next move, you're going to get a ton of value out of today's discussion. Welcome to the Chase MedSearch podcast, Jason.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you.
That is the biggest buildup of any guest we've had on today. I'm sure I'll hear from past guests.
I typically like the under promise, over deliver aspect, but we'll go the opposite way this time.
Absolutely, man. It is great to have you on. And we're going to talk about your career. We're going to do all that. But I first want to hear, let's talk about Egg Medical.
Yeah.
What was the spark that originally brought Egg Medical into being? What is Egg Medical? I think some people have never heard of that. So fill us in a little bit on the gaps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Egg Medical, Dr. Wilson is the founder of Egg Medical. He is a cardiologist by trade, interventionalist who saw a problem, right? Which is where most great ideas come from. You see a problem and you feel that need. Find a solution for that problem, which is exactly what he did. It was a problem that he was facing as an interventionalist himself. A problem that is not isolated to just him as an interventionalist. So he had the entire team in mind when he was thinking about it, but it was radiation exposure, right? And how do we not just reduce that radiation exposure, but there's also an orthopedic part to that where, injuries are being caused because of the way that we're protecting providers from radiation today. In addition to, how do we help the longevity of not just their careers, but their ability to provide healthcare to others, right? So what we like to say is we're not just helping hearts, but we're helping hearts and heroes at the same time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I had no idea. I know people wear lead aprons around, but I had really not much. I just figured that must be effective because that's what they do. But, digging into the website and looking at that, it looks like there's a whole host of health issues that pop up by continual exposure to radiation, which also makes me think about reps that are in cases a lot too.
100%.
So yeah, fill us in a little bit. What can happen with, I know it's not good with constant exposure to radiation and a lack of protection or appropriate protection.
Yeah, so you just touched on one of those things, right? Having a rep in a room, right? So again, there's a team, and a lot of people don't think about what that team means, but that team is not just a provider. It's not just a team of those hospital professionals that are healthcare professionals that are part of the hospital that also work in that room. But then you have the support staff, right? Such as your reps who are there with the latest technology, also making sure that we have great outcomes. And so one of the things that separates Egg from some of our competitors, and one of the reasons why I think it's such a great product, is it does exactly that. It protects everyone in the room. So we're able to reduce that radiation by such. And again, that's for everyone in the room, not just the provider, which is a huge difference from us and what some of the other competitors in this industry are able to do.
Yeah, that's just great. Clinicians, I've heard it said are very comfortable with legacy solutions and the way that they've done things, throughout the years. We've always done it this way.
Right.
I know you're very new there, so you may not have it all down pat yet, but what do you think's key in overcoming that kind of mentality in introducing Egg Medical's platform?
Yeah. So I think that answer is probably good across the board, right? So even though I'm
Hmm.
new here at Egg, I think the answer to that question is information, right? So
Okay.
the
Mhm.
more you know, uh, well, you don't know what you don't know. That's first, right? But the more information you have, it can change your perspective and your ideals on things. So bringing insights to customers, bringing new information that changes their perspective of how they think is the way to typically
Mhm.
get around that. You can't
Yeah.
convince somebody of something that they think they already know. But if you give them enough information to change that thought process or their perspective on what it is they think they know, that's the first step in the right direction. So, mastering your craft, having the right information, and making sure that you're giving the information to the right person the way that they want to receive it. But it's always going to start with, the information and education of the person that you're
Hmm.
talking to. Yeah.
Yeah. Behavior change
Behavior
comes through
changed.
knowledge.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back a bit. Go back in time here. How did you know you wanted to be in sales? When did you know that? How old were you? Do you remember the moment?
Gosh. I don't think that I'm going to say that I wanted to go into sales. If
Okay.
when I was an undergrad, my first two job offers out of college were CIA and Secret Service, right?
Nice.
Yeah, those
Okay.
were the
Yeah.
two places I wanted to go. So,
Yeah.
as an undergrad student at Morehouse College, that was my
Mhm.
desire. That was my dream. That was the direction I want to go. Long story short, dream deferred there for some reasons. Decided to go into another path, but I believe that sales bone was always in my body. My dad was in
Mhm.
sales. I
Yeah.
actually, did some very entry level entrepreneurship sales as a kid myself. In high school, I was the guy who was freezing the chocolate bars at night to bring them to school in the
Okay.
morning and take that 24 pack of Costco Snicker bars and that were
Yeah.
15 or 10 to 15 bucks and sell them for $1 each for a profit, right? Then
Mhm.
I was the
Mhm.
guy that turned that into a uh, you know mowing the lawn and car washing business, right? I could wash
Mhm.
your car for 15, I could mow your lawn for 15, or I would do them both, for 25, right? Like whatever the
Mhm.
deal was. And so I think I've always had that bone in my body, coming from a sales background with my dad always being in sales, even though I didn't choose that path. It came very
Mhm.
natural to me once I started to overlap in that path, and then once I aligned in sales, it's been a no brainer since then. It's kind of been wind
Yeah.
underneath my wings, so to speak.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So you were doing this even without realizing you had a knack for it, and just the hustle factor. Sounds
The,
like
the, the hustle
was
factor,
strong.
that's it. The hustle
Yeah.
factor, yeah, big time.
That's great. What was the hardest part of breaking into medical sales? Once you kind of started in your career in sales and your journey, how did you become aware of medical sales? Then how did, was it hard for you? Many people find it
Yeah,
very hard to get in.
yeah. When I first became aware of medical sales, I was actually working as a recruiter trying to hire individuals in the medical device realm. I was working in a small boutique firm that was hiring
Mhm.
uh, for these individuals, and I was recruiting on both sides, right? So I'm talking to the hiring manager, and I'm also
Mhm.
talking to the candidates. And so I was kind of in that in between phase, which you know very well, and you kind of
Oh
understand what
yeah.
both are looking for, right? You have the candid conversations on both sides. And so in
Hmm.
2008, when the market crashed, there was not a lot of recruiting going on whatsoever. So I literally took that opportunity to reverse engineer my resume and
Hmm.
said, okay, I know what they're looking for and I know what they want. So I'm going to go back to school, get an MBA. I'm going to
Hmm.
go work for a company that I know that uh, this industry likes to hire from, right? Which there's a small
Hmm.
group of those cut your teeth
Oh
type
yeah.
companies that they love to hire from. And I went and did that. And I said, I'm going to bust my
Which one
tail.
was yours? I got to
My,
ask, which one
uh,
was yours?
well, give me your top three. What would you say your top three
Oh, well, I don't
things?
want to. I don't. If it's not, if yours isn't one of it, ADP is one I
Stop right
always
there.
say.
Stop right there. I knew you
Okay,
were going to name it. I went to ADP. See, I went to ADP. And that's why I
yeah,
said to name it,
classic.
because if you do your research, right, it's very
Mhm.
easy to really find out where to go and where you want to be. All right. You didn't know that's where I started, but you knew that that's one of those companies, and I did too at that time. So I went to ADP and cut my teeth, learned a lot, really
Mhm.
excelled in the sales industry, and then it was there that I actually started to learn the basis, of the professional sale and what was
Yeah.
necessary in that environment, which opened the door to my first opportunity into device. And the hardest part about that, to answer the second part of your question, is actually
Hmm.
finding that opportunity, right? The hardest part is finding the right opportunity with the right company. The
Hmm.
opportunities are far and few between. And
Yeah.
even when the opportunity presents itself, is it the right company and the right time and the right organization for you? Because those are
Hmm.
the ingredients that are going to, decide whether or not you sink or swim in that environment. All opportunities are not created the same. So,
Right. No, that's great. What what habits, what traits, what behaviors do you think you had that made you stand out in the interviews, that you were kind of manifesting on your B2B job at ADP, that really are early tells for success in medical devices? Because I always say medical device people, they come from somewhere, they come out of some place, and you can spot it early with people sometimes when you're interviewing them and they have never been in the OR.
yeah,
So what did you have? What was going on? What kind of, how are you running your life?
yeah,
Sort of. Um,
yeah. That's a great question. I'm gonna say, history repeats itself. Um,
mhm.
no matter how small it is, I think that you're gonna have a pattern of success. You can find a pattern of winning, right? There is a pattern of somebody who has resilience. And so when you pick up those patterns in life from people, especially when I'm interviewing, that's what I'm looking for. When you're asking those background questions and trying to understand, did you play sports? Were there any extracurricular activities? Talk to me about adversity, and things of that nature. You're trying to see patterns, and I'm looking for patterns. And I think I had a lot of those patterns in life, of the resilience, of the success,
Mhm.
of the relationship building, a lot of the patterns that you need to be successful in this industry. Not only did I have
Mhm.
them in past tense, but I was exhibiting those exact same patterns currently in life. And so, even though
Mhm.
they may not have been a one to one to the exact job at that time, because somebody has to give you the opportunity, right, before you have the opportunity. I think
Right.
a good leader is able to recognize those patterns, see whether or not those patterns are going to be transferable skill sets, and then
Mhm.
coach and develop the person that has that raw talent and those skill sets into a successful person at the company, right? Into somebody that's going to actually succeed and win.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love companies like ADP because they take raw material with
100%.
a lot of things you could spot and say, okay, this person's got potential, but
Yeah.
then they train them, they train
Yeah.
them, they drill them. Is there any particular sales training you went through that they gave you that you think was foundational for your career, or any experiences you got at ADP that really set the tone and the foundation for everything that came to follow?
Yeah. I think the experience that you get at ADP is truly understanding that, um, the results, I mean, it's a true hunter mentality, right? Your
Hmm.
results are yours. And those results start over every 30 days, by the way. So you have to wake up, uh, and go get it. And you got to
Yeah.
kill it and you got to bring it back every single day, every single week, every single month. I'm not
Hmm.
sure how it is now, but as a kid, when I was taking that job in my early 20s, every single week you're standing up in roll call in front of all of your peers saying, this is how much I'm going to sell. This is how much I'm going to bring in this. I mean, you're committing the numbers out loud. There is a ton of accountability. There's a ton of visibility, and again,
Yeah.
it doesn't come to you, right? It's not inside sales. You got to wake up, go out into your territory, and you got to go pound the dirt every single day. And you're getting doors slammed in your face. You're standing in hot garages, sometimes in a sport coat and a blazer, or in somebody's basement, or in some back room. But whatever the case may be, did you get the sale, right? So it was
Hmm.
really a sink or swim type environment that was highly visible, and it just showed you whether you have it or you don't have it. It was
Yeah.
feed the eagles, starve the turkeys. Period. Yeah,
I remember talking to someone that sold for Centos, and they have the same
yeah,
process at the
same
time where you
process.
stand
That's right.
stand up in front of your peers and you have to say how much more you sold versus last week. And
Yep.
the amounts are not big. At
Right.
that time he
Right.
was like, $150
Right.
more, but you had to bring something.
Oh
You
yeah.
had to bring
Yeah.
your
I
account.
remember my first boss in that industry. He said, what we do here is we find people shoveling shit barefoot and we give them
Mm.
boots. And I said,
There
you know
you
what? That's
go.
that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, yeah. That is actually a perfect segue because I was going to ask you: is there a mentor or two that has made a big impact on your career? And what I was going to ask you: what have they said or done that really you remember and you act on? Obviously, we got the great quote there, but anybody else? Those kinds of things matter a lot because that's been foundational or shaped some of the things that you've
Yeah.
done later on.
That's pretty easy. Best mentor, coach that I've had in my life is my dad, period.
Hmm.
He's the guy that I talk to first thing in the morning every day. Start with my
Hmm.
devotional and quiet time with God in the morning. And then the very first voice that I hear is my dad. Every
Hmm.
morning, that's the guy that I talk to. He's had a long, successful career himself. I mean, he could write a book on the experiences that he's had in his professional
Hmm.
career. But my dad has a way of taking complex things and making them very simple. I mean, that
Hmm.
is a talent of his
Yeah.
by far. And the one thing that I hear echoing in my head constantly, even when he's not around,
Mhm.
is do the right thing, right? And
Mm,
I
mm,
think we all know what the right thing is, even when we may not want to do it, right? We all know what the right thing is. And so whenever I'm in a situation where I'm always questioning myself or I'm wondering, what should I do? Should I turn left? Should I turn right?
mhm,
What strategy, whatever the situation is, typically the foundation of that is always, that voice in the back of my head. And I hear my dad say, hey, it starts with doing the right thing, right? Character, integrity. So yeah, he's the person that I would say number one by far has been the biggest
mhm.
influence on my career, who I am as a person, professionally, etc. Yeah,
Yeah, that's fantastic. Um, yeah, mentors like that are just absolutely irreplaceable.
that's it.
And
That's it, man.
how do you stay sharp in your game? How do you stay on top of things? You work in the cutting edge of technology and have been for years. Are there resources you use? Do you listen to podcasts? How do you keep up on the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say all of the above, right? I mean, you definitely have to
Hmm.
stay hip on reading, and you definitely want to
Hmm.
make sure you're reaching out to podcasts for the best
Hmm.
um, interaction with dialogue from people and other experiences. But
Hmm.
I think ultimately for me, the secret sauce is probably my professional and personal circle, right? That
Hmm.
group of people that you keep around you.
Yeah.
I would say, I humbly say that I'm probably in my friend group. I look at myself as the least of my friends in my friend group, which I
Hmm.
think is a great thing to be able to say because I want to be around people that are continuing to stretch me intellectually,
Hmm.
professionally, as a person, as a father. And I think all of my friends do that in some capacity. So I think the secret sauce, similar to the sayings that we always hear of, iron
Hmm.
sharpens iron, right? And give me the average of the friends around you, and I'll show you what you're going to look like
Hmm.
in the next 3 to 5 years. I really do believe in that, right? And so
Yeah.
my friend group is extremely talented, knowledgeable, high integrity, high excelling,
Hmm.
succeeding guys that just are thriving to be the best in every single area that they can be in. And I think that helps
Hmm.
me to be a better version of myself also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Think of a quote: "You become roughly about 70% of the people you hang around."
Yeah. Yeah.
I tell that to my kids all the time. I'm like,
So true.
be selective, be picky.
Yeah. 100%.
Don't be friends with everybody. Don't be close with everybody.
That's right.
Figure it
Yeah.
out. You know. When you look at reps, and you've hired a
Yeah.
lot of reps, you've been a rep, you're in leadership now. When you look at reps that have stayed flat in their career versus those who really accelerated their career, what's the difference in your observation?
Yeah. So some reps want to stay flat. All right. Well, we can start there. Some reps are very happy being reps and they're very good at it.
Mhm.
They have great relationships. They have a great quality of life. I'm thinking about a guy right now that I'm a great friend with who probably could be a
Mhm.
leader, has had the opportunity, but he has no interest in it. So you do have some of those individuals, and for them, I say, hey, you found, your spot, and you have a good spot, and kudos to you,
Mhm.
right? Continue to lead your life and be successful. Um, for those reps that want to get promoted that are not, I think, or that want to elevate their career in some way and they have not. Typically, what I see is that overwhelmingly, it's a situation where they haven't realized yet that their performance does not translate into leadership. Your
Mhm.
performance is what is keeping you at the company. Your performance is what they are paying you for. It's what you're getting compensated for, and it's a part of your job requirement. But your performance is just about you. For those people that want to lead others, you start to understand that it's no longer about you. It's about how you're affecting the people around you, how you're coaching and
Mhm.
developing, how you're touching the company at a different level, how you're impacting the company and others around you at a different level. And it becomes about everything else except for you. And the moment you can stop thinking like an individual contributor and what you've done and how great you are and the relationships that you have, because all that's going to do is make you an amazing rep, which that's totally fine if
Right.
that's what you want to do. But if you want to expand and do things outside of that, especially when you're talking about, impacting others or coaching and developing others, then, you no longer matter. And so,
Mhm.
can you show me how you've affected, coached, developed, or impacted people outside of yourself, that, won't necessarily have any success or any, there's nothing in it for you, so to speak, right? How are you doing for others in a selfless way? Can you show selfless leadership? And I think something
Mhm.
to keep in mind in that scenario is, whatever position you're in now, um, doing your job or your job description at a high level is expected.
Mhm.
What you should be doing is looking at the level right above yours where you want to go and saying, how do I take over some of those job responsibilities in the role that I'm in today? Right. Because, and I
Mhm.
always say this, and this is a nice little gem that I like to drop. The definition of a promotion is public recognition of a job that you're already doing. Right. And so
Exactly.
if you want to get promoted, you should already be doing that job so that when you go on the job interview, you're not giving futures or speculative,
Mhm.
information on what I will do or what I might do. You can talk about how you're executing on that job today and how you're doing some of those
Mhm.
job requirements today. It doesn't take the title to do it. It takes the know-how, the energy, and the will. And then when you go to interview, you're not speaking in futures, you're speaking in current and past tense of something that you're doing today. And hopefully they'll give you the public recognition of the title, but you're already doing the job.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep. That's outstanding advice, because working in human resources as long as I did in corporate America, this was always a subject that would come up.
Yeah.
And, you ask them the question, well, what are you doing in your current role, that are kind of like those responsibilities? And sometimes you don't get much back, and then you can make suggestions, right?
Right.
Was there any leader when you were, a rep or when you were a first line manager that you looked up to, professionally speaking, that modeled those behaviors? What were they like? Who were they?
Oh, yeah. So I'm thinking about a guy at Boston Scientific that I worked for. He was an amazing leader. There was a couple of them at Boston Scientific. Um, Two of them that I'm thinking of at the top of my head. And some of the attributes that they had were, number one, they were servant leaders. They made it very clear that they were a part of the team. Although they were the leader of the team, they were definitely a part of the team. And I saw very quickly that leadership was not about, dictatorship, right? It was not about things rolling downhill. It wasn't about fear. It wasn't about giving direction. What it was really about was making people better, creating an environment that people wanted to be in, um,
Mm-hmm.
creating a relationship with the people on your team as such to where they didn't want to disappoint you, right? Will people follow you without you having to ask? Is the biggest thing. And I think leaders that people follow without them having to ask, that is a huge feather in your cap because it means that you're doing something right. So to
Yeah.
me, leadership is about, following what's right, not necessarily who's right. It's understanding that, your title means less than your ability to actually do the job itself, right? And coach, develop, connect people, as well as creating an environment and a culture that people actually want to be involved in and stick around for. So
Mm-hmm.
those were the best leaders that I had. That was what they showed. That's what I experienced. And that is the type of leader that I try to be today.
Mm-hmm. That's great. If you could look back in time and
Yeah.
go back and counsel young Jason Miles
Oh man.
starting out in his career, what's some advice you would have for him that you wish you would have known earlier in your
Oh
career?
wow. Man, that's a there's a lot I could say. But what I'm gonna say is you will never regret putting your family first.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
that's the advice I would give. I think
Yeah.
you will never regret, and there's a lot of ways to think about that. So I'm going to leave it very
Yeah.
broad because I think
Okay.
that there's a lot of ways to interpret that,
Okay.
but you will
Hmm.
never
Yeah.
regret putting your family first.
Mm. Wise words. I have ears to hear that, and
Yeah.
I hope everybody does. That's
Yeah.
great advice. Um, when stakes get high in medical sales and leadership and things like that, are there other personal values or habits that guide you through those tough times where you're forced with a crossroads or you're having to make a really tough decision?
Mm.
Are there some bedrock values, principles that you have, that you rely on to make those kinds of choices? Because leadership will test you. I,
100.
I I know that
Yeah.
as the president of this company and a business owner, but I'm not responsible for the amount of people you are or have been, right? And I think people underappreciate how difficult, how emotionally difficult that can be. Some of these choices that have to be made sometimes. So tell us about more bedrock principles of leadership for you,
Yeah.
if you will.
I'm gonna say consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think consistency is more important. I'd rather you be consistent than be nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because consistency
Mm-hmm.
allows me to know what to expect, right? And so even in a situation where you're going through hard times as a company, as a leader, professionally, personally, whatever the case may be, if you are consistent with who you are as a person, if you're consistent with that integrity, if you're consistent with that thing like we just talked about, doing the right thing, right? If you're consistent with your principles,
Mm-hmm.
even when hard times hit, don't allow the hard times to change you, right?
Yeah.
You stay diligent in those hard times with your principles, and typically those people come out on the other side. And I've seen great companies do this, and I've seen great leaders do this, right? I'm not going to change who I am as a leader and stop caring about my people and stop caring about the culture and stop caring about the coaching and the developing just because we're behind a number or just because it's
Yeah.
not a great quarter, right? Because that starts to expose who you really are in those times. And so I think that, there's a poem about this in particular, right? And it talks about the test of a man, right? Or a test of a
Mm-hmm.
woman for that matter. But it talks about the test of a man and who you are really is in times of controversy and turmoil, not in times of comfort, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
when you're in those hard times, if you can be consistent, that's a true showing of who you are as a person. And I think the people around you can also feel and see that. And so, yeah, I think tough times, uh, the trick there is to be consistent with who you are and consistent with your principles.
That's such a great answer. And I just absolutely love it. And you said, I'd rather be consistent than be nice.
Yeah.
And I think as a leader, that is, I would say almost universally what people working for someone would want is consistency. Because that's when I start to hear from people
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
working in companies. Their manager may be the nicest person in the world, but if they're not consistent and they don't know what to expect and they don't know on any given day what that person's going to be like, and they blow
That's right.
hot and cold, and
That's right.
they're up and down,
It's the flavor of the day,
that will
right?
wear
Yeah.
people down.
It will.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That will wear them down.
Emotional to the moment. Yeah.
What is something you wish sales reps understood when they're interviewing or in a job process, that sales leaders are looking for when they're building a team? Is there a consistent theme of, when you're interviewing someone and they're sitting down with you and you just wish people would understand this more
Ooh.
about how to get a spot on your team and what you really want when you're hiring? Is
Mm.
there any consistent thing? I know every job things change and there's different requirements and stuff like that, but is there anything
Yeah, I mean,
people kind of miss?
there's a few things I can touch on. Actually, I'm gonna try to keep this as succinct as possible. But number one is, especially in a sales job, right? Number one
Mhm.
is you are the product when you go on an interview, and the person that you are interviewing with is the customer. So in a sales job, when you're trying to tell me how creative you are as a salesperson, when you're trying to tell me how resilient and how diligent you are as a salesperson, I'm not listening to that. I'm watching what you're doing, because no one knows the product of yourself better than you. And I'm the customer that you're trying to sell it to. So I'm not listening to what you're telling me. I'm saying, show me. You're selling a product right now and you are the product, and no one knows you better than you. And I am the customer, and you're not even doing a good job of selling yourself right now. So what makes me think that you're going to be doing a better job of selling this product that I have here at this company, which you don't know better than yourself? So just remember on an interview process, number one, that you are the product and I am the customer. So show me everything you're telling me that you're going to do when you get the job. You
Mhm.
should be doing it right now in the interview. That's number one. Number two, nobody cares what your job description was. What we care is how well you did it. You
Mhm.
can tell me all day what your job description was. I want to know how well you did the job. And so talk to me about how well you did something, not what you did. If it reads like a job description and you're just telling me what the job description was, that's great. Everyone that's in your role had that exact same job description, but it does not mean that everyone in that role was executing that job in the exact same way. All sales
Mhm.
reps job descriptions read the same, but everyone's not at the same percent the plan. So talk to me
Mhm.
about how well you did it. Um, and then lastly is the consistency piece, right? So,
Mhm.
if I'm seeing consistent things, and we talked about that, if I'm seeing consistent things in your past, um, patterns in your past,
Mhm.
it's going to be very hard to convince me that those patterns and that consistency is not, going to trickle
Yeah.
over and into real time. So
Mhm.
those are kind of the three things that I would say. If I were talking to a rep, those are the three things I'd say to focus on and to think about when walking into an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's so good. I've had panicked calls every now and then from reps who, I wasn't even scheduling their interview. I'm not working with them or the company, but they just want some last minute advice. And they're like, I got this call last night to interview this morning. I haven't done nearly enough research. I haven't done this or that. And I said, here's the thing: the first step is understanding yourself, right? So
Agreed.
you need to know what you're bringing to the table
That's
and
it.
focus on that. If it's an imperfect world, you haven't had the time to research. They called you
That's
last
right.
night.
That's
You
right.
don't know. So walk in there and know who you are and know what you've done. And if you can, based on the bare minimum research you've done, try to draw some parallels between what you've done and what you think they're going to need you to do. But the
That's
first
it.
rule is know yourself. You
And
got
that's
to
and
know
that's the
yourself.
product piece. You're the product, right? And so if you know your product, if you know your craft, what do you do with products? You find a way to fit your product as a solution into the customer's problem, right? And so just like you
Mhm.
said, hey, you're hiring for something. There's a spot that's open. All right, well, what are you looking for? Right? It's the whole sell me the pen. You don't just go into selling the pen. You start asking questions about the pen, right? Like,
Mhm.
are you in the market for one? What was the last one you bought? What do you use the pen for? Like, you find out how to position your product. So find out how to position yourself, to your point,
Mhm.
and then
That's
position
why.
yourself perfectly, to be the solution that they need. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Well said. Well
Um,
said.
yeah. Hey, I mean, I'm just
You've done this
riffing
once or
off what you
twice.
said, which is great. But what are you excited for when you look at the future of medical devices? You've been in this for a while.
Yeah.
You just joined an exciting startup company.
Yep.
But in general, more broadly, this has been a great multi-decade career for me, for you.
Yeah.
Um, as you look at the horizon and the shifting landscape, what are you personally excited about for the future of the industry and what's happening?
Man, I am excited about our ability to deliver better outcomes, not just to patients, but to providers, right? To the entire staff. I think that where technology is going today with artificial intelligence and our ability to cross AI over into MedTech is taking our technology to new levels. Some of the things that we've just seen in the past 3 to 5 years are, really advancing healthcare. And so my excitement is around what all of us, you included, are able to do for patients with the technology that we're bringing to the forefront here. And that's with all the companies, man. Every company is working hard to bring better technology for better outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, me too. I mean, I think AI, we haven't even scratched the surface of the
have
potential
not.
yet and
Yeah,
what's
absolutely.
happening.
It's going to be so exciting.
Well, we'll have to have you back on
Hey, man, I
about a
would love
year
to.
in,
I would
right?
love
Egg
to. I would
Medical,
love
we'll have
to,
you
man.
back in
That's
for a
it. We're
recap.
taking over.
Thanks, Jason, for being on. I appreciate it.
No, no problem at all, Jordan. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Chase MedSearch podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Be sure to visit our website at chasemedsearch.com and drop a resume. That way you never miss a job opportunity. And please subscribe to our YouTube platform, even if you like to consume the content in other ways. It really helps our algorithm, and we'd love to see you.